Be honest, how long have you been waiting to feel ready? Another month, another year, another version of you with more confidence, more clarity, more proof. Because this is what nobody tells you. Self-belief doesn't just shape what you do, it shapes what you never even attempt. And the things you don't attempt don't disappear. They don't politely step aside. They turn into a quiet kind of regret, not the dramatic movie scene regret, the slow regret. The kind that shows up in small moments, scrolling late at night, watching someone else do what you secretly wanted to do and thinking, that could have been me. The kind that whispers, I could have been so much more if I believed in myself sooner. And here's the scary part. The window closes faster than we admit. Not because time runs out overnight, because habits harden. Every time you choose comfort over growth, your brain learns something. It files it away like evidence. This is who we are. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to challenge that identity. So if you're watching this right now, take it as a sign. Not that you're behind, that you're waking up. And you don't need a whole personality makeover to start building self-belief. You need one practical move you can do today. Here it is. Pick one promise you can keep in the next 24 hours. Not a huge one, a real one. Something small enough that you won't negotiate with yourself. Maybe it's 10 minutes of practice. Maybe it's sending the message you've been avoiding. Maybe it's applying even though you feel underqualified. Maybe it's getting up and showing up before motivation arrives, then do it. And when you do, don't rush past it. Pause and let your brain register. I keep my word. Because self-belief isn't built by hype, it's built by receipts. Do that again tomorrow. Then again. And watch what happens. Your identity starts to shift from I'm not ready to I'm someone who follows through. And if you don't want to lose another year to doubt, like this video, subscribe for more and share it with someone you love, because they might be waiting too. Chapter 1. The power of self-belief. There is a version of you that already knows how this ends. That version gets up before excuses wake up. That version moves with purpose even when motivation is nowhere to be found. That version doesn't wait for permission, doesn't wait for perfect timing, and doesn't wait to feel ready. The only difference between the person you are today and the person you intend to become is not talent, luck, or a secret opportunity. It is the strength of your self-belief, built through disciplined action. Self-belief isn't loud confidence. It isn't a performance. It's quiet certainty. It's the inner decision that you are the kind of person who follows through. When self-belief is weak, you hesitate, you negotiate, you delay, you abandon plans halfway through. When self-belief is strong, you still feel fear, you still feel doubt, but you move anyway. You understand something simple. Feelings are weather, but decisions are architecture. Picture a bridge stretching over a canyon. On one side is where you are. On the other is where you want to be. Talent can be a strong cable, but it is useless if you never step onto the bridge. Motivation can be a gust of wind that pushes you forward, but wind changes direction. Self-belief is the foundation holding the bridge in place. Without it, you keep walking to the edge, looking down and turning back, telling yourself the distance is too far. The truth is, the bridge doesn't appear after you feel fearless. The bridge appears as you prove to yourself, one step at a time, that you can be trusted. I once watched a young man at a small gym come in every morning at the same time. He wasn't built like an athlete. He didn't have the swagger of someone who'd been winning for years. He was ordinary in the most honest way. Day 1, he struggled to lift an empty bar with good form. Day 2, he struggled again. Day 10, he still struggled, but he showed up. The regulars barely noticed him at first because he didn't announce himself. He didn't complain, he didn't seek applause, he simply did what he said he would do. Weeks passed, then months. The bar gained weight. His posture changed. His eyes changed. Not because he became a different human overnight, but because he kept making a small promise and keeping it. And each time he kept it, his self-belief became less like a wish and more like a fact. That's the first truth you must accept. Self-belief is evidence-based. It grows when you collect proof. Most people try to believe first and act later. The disciplined person acts first and lets belief catch up. You don't need to feel like a finisher to finish. You finish and then you become a finisher. Think about the moments you've broken your own trust. You set a goal, then you let the day decide for you. You tell yourself you'll start Monday, then Monday arrives and your mind bargains its way into comfort. Every time you do that, you send a message to yourself. My words don't matter. It's not dramatic, but it's powerful. Your identity listens. Your nervous system listens. Your future plans listen. Then one day you wonder why you don't feel confident. It's because confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from reliability. Now here is the good news. The same mechanism that weakened your self-belief can strengthen it. You rebuild trust with yourself the same way you rebuild trust with anyone, by doing what you said you would do consistently, especially when it's inconvenient. Start small, but start strict. Make a promise you can keep today, not someday. A 10-minute walk, 1 page of reading, 5 minutes of planning, 1 healthy meal. The size of the action is less important than the integrity of it. A small kept promise is worth more than a massive plan that collapses. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Your self-belief is shaped by the stories you repeat. If you keep repeating, "I'm not consistent," your brain will look for proof that you're right. It will highlight every failure and ignore every effort. But if you begin repeating, "I am practicing consistency," your brain shifts from judgment to construction. You stop treating setbacks as verdicts and start treating them as feedback. The language matters because your mind is not just a thinker. It is a builder. It builds what you keep handing it. There's a simple exercise that changes the game. Tonight, write down 3 moments from today when you did something you didn't feel like doing, even if it was tiny. Maybe you answered the email you were avoiding. Maybe you drank water instead of another soda. Maybe you didn't lash out when you felt irritated. Those moments are not random. They are evidence. You are teaching your mind to see the truth. You are capable of discipline. You are capable of change. You are not stuck. You are training. Another exercise is even more direct. Choose one identity statement that you will prove with action for the next 7 days. Not a fantasy identity like "I am unstoppable," but a grounded identity like "I am someone who keeps my morning promise." Then define the morning promise. It must be clear and measurable. I will wake up at 6:30 and sit up in bed. Or I will put on my shoes and step outside. Don't underestimate the power of that first action. The first action is the door. Once you're through the door, momentum becomes available. People fail here because they confuse self-belief with mood. They wake up, feel low, and assume they can't perform. But disciplined people don't use mood as a manager. They use systems. They set their environment to support the person they are becoming. They place the book on the pillow. They put the gym clothes by the door. They remove the most tempting distractions. They make the good choice easier and the bad choice harder. This is not weakness. This is intelligence. If you want a different life, you must create different defaults. Let me give you a metaphor that will stick. Imagine you're carving a path through a forest. The first time you walk it, branches hit your face, weeds slow your steps, and the ground feels uneven. It's hard. That's the early phase of change. But every time you walk the same route, the path becomes clearer. The ground becomes smoother. The walk becomes easier. Self-belief is that path. At first, your new habits feel unnatural because you haven't walked them enough. With repetition, they become your normal. The forest doesn't change overnight. The path changes because you keep choosing it. You also need to understand the enemy of self-belief: constant comparison. When you measure your early steps against someone else's decade of progress, you will always feel behind. That's a trap. Your only relevant comparison is who you were yesterday. You improved 1%, you're on the right track. The disciplined mind respects small wins because small wins compound. A single degree of direction change looks insignificant today, but over a year it becomes a different destination. There will be days you fail. Expect it. Plan for it. The person with strong self-belief is not the person who never slips. It's the person who doesn't turn a slip into a slide. They don't say, "I messed up, so I'm done." They say, "I messed up, so I'm back." They treat recovery as part of the process. If you can master the skill of returning, you will become unstoppable, not because you are perfect, but because you are persistent. Here is a practical rule that will save you: never miss twice. Miss a workout, fine, do the next one. Eat poorly once, fine, eat well at the next meal. Skip a morning routine, fine, restart the next morning. The damage is rarely caused by one mistake. The damage is caused by the story you attach to it. See, I always fail. That story is poison. Replace it with a disciplined truth: I am the kind of person who resumes. Your self-belief will grow as you become more honest with yourself. Not harsh, honest. If you say you want to change but you keep living like you don't, your mind will stop trusting your words. So stop making dramatic promises. Make precise commitments. And then honor them. You don't need a new personality. You need a new pattern. As we close this chapter, let it land deeply. Self-belief is built, not found. It is earned, not gifted. It is the result of repeated proof that you are who you say you are. So what is one promise you can keep in the next 24 hours that would make you respect yourself more? What is one small action that would serve as evidence that your future is not a hope, but a plan? And when you notice doubt whispering that you can't, will you be willing to answer with action, so that a week from now your belief is not a feeling, but a record of what you've done? Chapter 2. The power of self-belief. You've already seen that self-belief isn't something you wait for. It's something you earn by keeping promises when it would be easier to break them. You've seen how small actions become evidence, and how returning quickly after a slip protects your identity from collapsing into old patterns. Now it's time to take that foundation and turn it into a structure that holds under pressure, not just on good days, but on the days that test you. Pressure reveals what you truly believe about yourself. When life is calm, anyone can feel confident. When you're tired, criticized, overwhelmed, or tempted, your real standards show up. This chapter is about building a kind of self-belief that doesn't depend on comfort. It's about becoming the person who stays steady when the moment gets heavy. There's a difference between liking the idea of discipline and living it. The idea is clean and inspiring. The reality is repetitive, unglamorous, and often lonely. That's why so many people start strong and fade quietly. They fall in love with the beginning because the beginning feels like possibility. But possibility is cheap. Character is what remains when possibility runs out and you still have work to do. Imagine a ship leaving the harbor. In the harbor, the water is calm, the ropes are secure, and the destination feels real. The moment the ship hits open ocean, the waves begin. Wind changes, visibility drops. If the ship was built for comfort instead of storms, it will turn back. Your self-belief is that ship. It cannot be built only for easy water. It must be built for the unpredictable days because your future will demand that strength. I want you to picture a musician preparing for a performance. The audience will see the final result, the clean notes, the effortless timing, the calm presence under lights. But what created that moment wasn't a burst of inspiration. It was thousands of boring repetitions, scales played when no one was watching, mistakes corrected instead of ignored, and sessions that started even when the musician didn't feel like picking up the instrument. Here, the key. The musician doesn't practice because they already believe they're great. They practice until their hands prove they can be trusted. That proof becomes confidence. It's the same for you. Most people try to build self-belief through self-talk alone. They repeat affirmations, chase motivation, and search for something that will make them feel ready. But your brain isn't convinced by speeches. Your brain is convinced by receipts. It believes what you demonstrate. If you want unshakable self-belief, you must live in a way that makes doubt look unreasonable. So let's get direct. Your self-belief rises and falls based on one thing more than anything else, whether you keep your word to yourself. Not your word to others, your word to you. When you say, "I'm going to do this," and you do it, you strengthen your identity. When you say it and you don't, you weaken it. Over time, your mind stops taking you seriously. That's why some people feel stuck. They aren't stuck because they lack potential. They're stuck because they've trained themselves to disregard their own intentions. The solution is not bigger promises. The solution is cleaner promises. Promises that are specific, realistic, and tied to a clear cue. You're not building a fantasy. You're building a reputation with yourself. Here's a practice that changes everything. Create a daily standard that is small enough to complete on your worst day, not your best day. A standard you can perform when you're tired, busy, and irritated. Because that's what makes it a standard. It becomes your baseline, your minimum. This is how you stop living at the mercy of circumstances. A daily standard could be writing one paragraph. It could be 10 push-ups. It could be 15 minutes of focused work. It could be prepping one healthy meal. It could be reviewing your plan for tomorrow before bed. The point is not the activity. The point is that you establish a non-negotiable that proves you do not abandon yourself. Then you build upward from there. When the minimum is done, you can do more. But you never let the day end with nothing. Nothing is what teaches your brain to doubt you. Something is what keeps the identity alive. Now let's talk about the moment you're most likely to break your promise. It's not when you're incapable. It's when you can do it, but you don't want to. That moment is the crossroads. That's where self-belief is either strengthened or stolen. And the way you win that moment is by removing the debate. People lose because they negotiate with themselves. They ask, should I? Do I feel like it? Is it worth it today? The longer you debate, the more comfort wins. The disciplined person uses a different script. This is what I do. That sentence is powerful because it's identity-based. You're not arguing about a task, you're expressing who you are. If your mind is used to negotiating, you need a trigger phrase that shuts it down, something simple, firm, and immediate. It can be as short as "no discussion" or "execute" or "now." The phrase is not magical. It's a switch. It signals that the decision has already been made. You are not waiting to feel better, you are choosing to act. Another practical tool is the two-step start. You don't need to finish the whole thing in your head, you only need to start. The first step should be so small it feels almost insulting. Put your shoes on, open the document, fill the water bottle, stand up and stretch. The second step is the next obvious action. Walk outside, write the first sentence, do the first set. Once you begin, momentum becomes available, and momentum is a powerful ally. But momentum alone isn't enough. You need resilience, because there will be days when momentum is nowhere to be found. On those days, you rely on alignment. Alignment means your actions match your standards even when your emotions complain. This is where your self-belief becomes solid, because you are proving something bigger than ability. You are proving integrity. Think about a firefighter training in full gear. Heavy, hot, exhausting. They don't train that way because it feels good. They train that way because the real moment won't be comfortable. They're preparing their body and mind to function under stress. You are building the same kind of capacity, not for flames and smoke, but for deadlines, temptations, setbacks, rejection, and fatigue. Your training ground is your everyday life. Every time you do the right thing while your mind protests, you become more dependable. Now let's address a brutal reality. You will be tested by distraction. Distraction is not just entertainment. Distraction is anything that pulls you away from the person you intend to be. It can be social media, endless messages, random tasks, or even busy work that feels productive but avoids the real work. Distraction steals self-belief because it steals follow-through. You need a daily window of protected focus. Not all day, just one window that you defend. In that window, you do the most important thing first. Not the easiest thing, not the most urgent noise, the thing that actually moves your life forward. When you do that consistently, you send yourself a message: my future matters more than my impulses. A simple way to protect that focus is to decide in advance what you will do and when you will do it. Don't leave it vague. Vague plans are invitations to procrastination. Concrete plans reduce friction. When the time arrives, you don't wonder what to do. You already know. This makes self-belief easier to build because you are reducing the number of decisions you have to fight through. And here's something most people don't want to hear. Your environment is either training you or weakening you. If your phone is always within reach, your focus will always be fragile. If your home is full of cues for comfort and none for growth, your willpower will be constantly taxed. Set your space up like you respect your goals. Remove friction from the habits you want and add friction to the habits you're trying to outgrow. This isn't about being extreme, it's about being serious. There's also a deeper layer. Self-belief grows when you stop making your life about proving yourself to others. When you chase validation, you become dependent on reactions. When the reaction is good, you feel strong. When the reaction is bad, you fall apart. Real self-belief is internal. It's built in private. It's built when no one claps. It's built when no one knows. So here's a disciplined shift. Measure yourself by your standards, not by your audience. Your standard is what you do when you're alone. Your standard is what you do when nobody is monitoring you. Your standard is what you do when excuses are available and you refuse them anyway. As you apply these ideas, don't wait for a dramatic transformation. Watch for quiet changes. You become calmer because you trust your decisions. You become sharper because you stop negotiating. You become more confident because your identity is backed by action. And slowly, the old story that you're inconsistent starts to sound unfamiliar because it no longer matches your behavior. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Now, let this settle as you move forward. What daily standard will you commit to that you can complete even on your worst day? And how will you anchor it to a specific time so it stops being a wish and becomes a routine? What trigger phrase will you use to end negotiation the moment it starts? And what two-step start will you rely on when you don't feel like beginning? And when the next test arrives, when distraction calls and comfort offers a shortcut, what will you choose to prove about yourself in that moment so your self-belief becomes stronger? Not because you talked about change, but because you practiced it. Chapter 3. The power of self-belief. By now, you've felt the shift from wishing to proving, from chasing a feeling to building a standard you can rely on. You've started to see that your strongest confidence comes from private follow-through, not public approval, and that your stability is forged when pressure shows up. Now we go deeper into the place where most people lose themselves. The moment something goes wrong. Self-belief isn't only built by starting. It's built by how you respond when you stumble. Because the truth is, your progress won't be a straight line. It will be a series of forward steps interrupted by life, mistakes, surprises, and fatigue. The person who becomes unstoppable is not the person who avoids interruptions. It's the person who has a disciplined method for recovery. Most people don't fail because they can't do the work. They fail because they don't know how to handle the emotional aftermath of a miss. They miss a day, break a streak, make a bad choice, then they collapse into a story. That story is what does the damage. The story says, this proves who I am. This proves I can't change. This proves I'm back where I started. And once that story takes hold, they stop acting like builders and start acting like victims of their own past. You're not going to do that anymore. You're going to treat setbacks like a professional, and professionals don't panic. They diagnose, adjust, and continue. Think of a pilot in turbulence. The plane shakes, the cabin rattles, and the passengers grip their seats. But the pilot doesn't start guessing wildly or abandoning the flight plan. The pilot follows procedure. The pilot trusts instruments. The pilot makes small corrections, keeps the aircraft stable, and moves through the storm. That's what you need, a procedure for turbulence. Here, that's what disciplined recovery looks like in real life. The moment you notice you slipped, you do not punish yourself with drama. You do not declare yourself broken. You do not turn one imperfect decision into a character indictment. You acknowledge it plainly without negotiation, and you take the next right action as quickly as possible. Not tomorrow. Not after you feel better. Now. This matters because your brain is always learning. In the old pattern, your brain learned this sequence. Mistake equals shame, shame equals avoidance, avoidance equals quitting. In the new pattern, your brain must learn a different sequence. Mistake equals reset, reset equals action, action equals identity strengthened. That new sequence is how self-belief becomes unbreakable. A setback can be anything. You overslept. You snapped at someone. You procrastinated. You ate what you promised you wouldn't. You skip the work you said mattered. The specific event is less important than what happens next. The next move is what defines you. Let me tell you about a woman who built her life back after losing the structure she relied on. She had been consistent for months, waking early, training, saving money, studying at night. Then her father became ill and the routine collapsed under hospital visits, exhaustion, and emotional weight. For a while she stopped everything. And then on one quiet evening she realized something. She wasn't failing because she lacked discipline. She was failing because she was waiting for her old life to return before she resumed her standards. So she rebuilt with a smaller frame. Not out of weakness, but out of respect for reality. She chose one action that meant I am still here. She did it daily. Some days it was a short walk in the parking lot. Some days it was 10 minutes of study while sitting beside a bed. Some days it was simply preparing her next day before she slept. That small act was her anchor. It didn't solve everything at once, but it prevented her identity from drifting. It kept her connected to who she was becoming even while life was heavy. Over time, the situation changed. Her capacity returned. Her routine expanded again. But the most important part was this: she learned she didn't need perfect conditions to remain loyal to her future. That is emotional strength. Not pretending everything is fine, but refusing to let pain make decisions for you. A disciplined recovery also requires honesty. You can't fix what you keep excusing. If you keep slipping in the same place, there is information there. Maybe your environment is set up for distraction. Maybe your plan is too vague. Maybe you're carrying fatigue because you're not sleeping. Maybe you're saying yes to too many things and leaving your future with scraps of energy. A setback is feedback. You don't take feedback personally. You take it seriously. So when you miss, don't only reset, investigate. What happened right before the slip? What time of day it occurred? What you were feeling? What you were avoiding? What you told yourself in that moment? When you can see the pattern, you can redesign the pattern. There's another trap you must eliminate: the all or nothing mindset. It whispers that if you can't do it perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. That mindset sounds strong, but it's actually fragile. It creates a life where one disruption destroys everything. The disciplined mind is different. The disciplined mind knows that partial progress is not failure. Partial progress is strategy. If you planned an hour and you can only do 15 minutes, you do the 15. If you planned a full workout and you can only do a short one, you do the short one. If you planned a perfect day and it's already messy, you still finish with one choice that respects your standard. That is not settling. That is survival with dignity. That is how you build a self-belief that doesn't shatter when life interferes. Now let's talk about the emotional voice that shows up after a setback. The voice that says you're behind, you wasted time, you'll never catch up. That voice tries to rush you into despair, but despair is lazy. Despair is a way of quitting while pretending you're being realistic. You are not going to be fooled by that. The disciplined response is to narrow your focus. You don't need to fix your whole life today. You need to win the next decision. That's it. One decision, one action, one proof. Self-belief is rebuilt in small receipts, not grand declarations. There is a powerful moment that comes when you realize your emotions are not commands, they are signals. You can feel disappointed and still act. You can feel embarrassed and still show up. You can feel uncertain and still execute. This is where your self-belief becomes mature. It becomes less about how you feel and more about what you choose. If you want an image to carry with you, Picture a stone cutter working on a block of granite. The stone doesn't change after one strike. It doesn't even change after 50. But the stone cutter keeps striking with consistency and precision. Then one day the stone splits cleanly. That split wasn't created by the final strike alone. It was created by every strike that came before it. Your progress is the same. Many of your efforts will look invisible at first. Your self-belief grows when you trust the work even when the results are not dramatic yet. You must also build tolerance for being misunderstood. As your standards rise, some people will question you, some will joke, some will doubt, some will be uncomfortable because your discipline mirrors their avoidance. If your self-belief depends on being liked, you'll fold. If your self-belief depends on your integrity, you'll stay steady. So you practice moving forward quietly. You don't need to announce every change. You don't need to argue with doubters. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You need to prove something to yourself. Your actions will do the talking. And here's the truth that turns all of this into power. Every setback is an opportunity to train recovery. The faster you recover, the stronger you become. Not just stronger in habit, stronger in identity. Because when you repeatedly return, you teach yourself a deep lesson. I am not fragile. I do not fall apart. I correct and continue. That lesson becomes a kind of calm you can't fake. So when you slip, make it clean. No spiraling. No extra damage. Reset quickly, adjust the system, take the next right step. This is what disciplined people do. This is how self-belief becomes permanent. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Now, as you move into your next day, consider what your recovery procedure will be the next time life disrupts your plan. When you miss, what will you do within the first hour to return to your standard instead of returning to your old story? What pattern keeps showing up? And what adjustment will you make so you stop relying on willpower and start relying on design? And when you feel that familiar pull toward all or nothing thinking, will you choose the disciplined middle path that keeps you moving, proving again that your self-belief isn't a mood? It's a decision you practice until it becomes who you are. Chapter 4. The power of self-belief. You've learned to treat self-belief as evidence, not a mood, and to protect it with small promises you keep even on your worst days. You've learned to shut down negotiation, to return quickly after a slip, and to handle setbacks like a professional who resets and continues. Now you're ready for the next level, because there's a point where keeping promises in private must turn into courage in public. Self-belief isn't complete until it can walk into uncertainty without falling apart. It's one thing to do your routine when life is predictable. It's another to take action when the outcome isn't guaranteed, when you might be judged, when you might fail in front of someone, when you might have to start again with nothing but your standards. This is where many people stall. They build discipline for comfort, but they don't build bravery for growth. Here's the truth. Your future is on the other side of something that makes you nervous. Not because you're weak, but because growth always asks for a price. That price is discomfort, risk, and exposure. If you refuse to pay it, you stay the same no matter how many plans you write. Think of a boxer stepping into the ring. Training is important, but training alone doesn't make a fighter. The ring is different. In the ring, there's pressure, noise, consequences, and the reality that you can be hit. A fighter becomes a fighter by entering anyway, and after enough rounds, something changes. The fear doesn't vanish, but it stops being in charge. That is what you're building. A self-belief that can take a hit and keep moving. Most people wait to feel confident before they take a big step. They tell themselves, when I feel ready, I'll apply. When I feel ready, I'll start. When I feel ready, I'll speak. But confidence doesn't arrive first. It is created by exposure. The first time you do something hard, you will feel awkward. The second time, you will feel less awkward. The 10th time, you will feel capable. The 100th time, you will feel calm. Confidence is the reward for repetition under uncertainty. So you need a new kind of standard, not just a daily standard, but a courage standard. A weekly commitment to do one thing that stretches you. Not something reckless, something constructive. Something that proves you are not trapped by comfort. A man once told me he had imposter syndrome at work. He said he felt like he didn't belong in the room. He said everyone else seemed smarter, more polished, more certain. He kept his head down, did his tasks, and avoided speaking up. On the surface, he was responsible, but inside he was shrinking. Every time he stayed silent, he collected evidence that he wasn't a leader. Then he wondered why he didn't feel like one. He made one change. Once a week, he would contribute one clear idea in a meeting. Not a speech, not a performance, one idea. The first time, his voice shook. He hated it. He replayed it in his head afterward. But the world didn't end. The second time, he prepared a sentence ahead of time. It came out cleaner. The third time, someone asked him a question and he answered. Months later, he was cured of nerves. He was stronger than them. He had built a reputation with himself. I don't hide, I participate. And that reputation is self-belief in its most useful form. Your fear is not proof that you can't. It's proof that you care and that you're standing at the edge of expansion. If you run from that edge, your world gets small. If you step forward, your world gets bigger. And the stepping forward doesn't need to be dramatic. It needs to be consistent. Here is a simple method to turn fear into fuel. First, name the arena. What area of life are you avoiding because it makes you feel exposed? It could be your health, your money, your relationships, your career, your creativity, your voice. Second, define the smallest brave action that moves you into that arena. Not the finish line, the entry point. Third, schedule it. If it is not scheduled, it is not real. Fourth, do it and record the evidence. After you act, write a short line to yourself. I did the hard thing, that's proof. This matters because fear loves ambiguity. Fear grows when tasks are vague and timelines are loose. Fear shrinks when actions are specific and immediate. Your mind can handle a clear step. It collapses under a fog of maybes. You also need to understand a painful but freeing reality. People will have opinions. Some will approve. Some won't. If you try to control that, you will become timid. Your self-belief cannot be built on applause. It must be built on alignment. The question isn't, will they like it? The question is this the right move for the person I'm becoming? If you've ever watched a child learn to ride a bike, you've seen this lesson in pure form. The child wobbles, falls, scrapes a knee, gets back up and tries again. They don't hold a meeting with their emotions. They don't label themselves a failure. They keep practicing because the goal is clear. Adults lose that simplicity. Adults make falling mean something about their worth. You're going to return to the cleaner mindset. Falling is part of learning. Learning is part of becoming. Now let's make this practical in a way you can use immediately. Create a courage ladder. At the bottom are actions that feel slightly uncomfortable but safe. In the middle are actions that make your heart beat faster. At the top are actions that scare you because they involve real stakes. You don't jump to the top on day one. You climb. Each rung is exposure that builds capacity. A bottom rung might be sending one message you've been avoiding. A middle rung might be asking for feedback, applying for a role, or pitching an idea. A top rung might be launching something publicly, having a difficult conversation, or leaving a situation that no longer matches your standards. The latter is personal. The point is that you stop living in avoidance and start living in training. And when you climb, you do it with your existing discipline tools. You do not wait for perfect conditions. You use a clear plan, a small start, a firm decision, and you execute. You will feel resistance. That is normal. The difference now is that you interpret resistance correctly. Resistance is not a stop sign. It's the toll booth at the entrance to growth. There's another skill that turns courage into momentum: recovering from rejection. Rejection is not always cruel. Sometimes it is simply information. But to your ego, it can feel like danger. If you let rejection define you, you will stop trying. If you treat rejection as training, you become fearless in the most practical way. Here is a strong practice. Aim to collect rejections on purpose, in controlled doses. Not to suffer, but to normalize the experience of hearing no. Ask for something reasonable that might be refused. Pitch an idea. Request a meeting. Offer your work. Make the call. You will learn that no does not destroy you. It refines you. And each time you return after a no, you strengthen your identity as someone who persists. This is the deeper meaning of self-belief. It's not the belief that everything will go smoothly. It's the belief that whatever happens, you will respond with discipline. You will adjust. You will continue. You will not abandon yourself. Now consider what happens when you combine your private standards with public courage. You become rare. Most people either dream loudly and act inconsistently, or they work quietly but hide when it's time to step up. When you can do both, you become dangerous in the best way. You become someone who can build and deliver. So choose one arena. Build one ladder. Take one step this week. Make it clean and scheduled. When the moment arrives, don't negotiate. Don't seek permission from your emotions. Act, then let your self-belief catch up to your courage. Your future responds to movement, not intention. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. As you step into what's next, ask yourself what arena you've been circling but not entering, and what the smallest brave action would be that proves you are done waiting. Ask yourself what rung on your courage ladder you will climb this week, and what time you will commit to it so it becomes real. And when fear shows up, not as a monster but as a signal that you're expanding, what will you choose to prove about yourself in that moment, so that your self-belief grows not just in private routines, but in the public decisions that shape your life? Chapter 5. The power of self-belief. You've learned to build proof through small kept promises, to hold steady under pressure, to reset quickly when you slip, and to step into discomfort with courage instead of waiting for confidence. You've stopped treating fear and mood like managers, and you've started treating your standards like anchors. Now we take all of that and aim it at one question that decides your long-term outcome. Who are you becoming? And what does that person do every day without negotiating? Self-belief becomes unstoppable when it turns into identity. Not the identity you claim when things are going well, but the identity you defend when nobody is watching, when the day is messy, and when the reward is far away. This is where most people lose. They can sprint, they can start, they can even grind for a short burst, but they can't stay loyal to a future they can't yet see. They need results to keep going. They need praise. They need proof from the outside. The disciplined person is different. They can work in the dark. They can build with patience. They can stay on course when progress is slow because their self-belief is no longer a feeling they chase. It's a commitment they live. Think of a farmer planting seeds. The ground doesn't applaud. The sky doesn't guarantee rain. Nothing looks different the next morning. But the farmer still gets up, still tends the soil, still does the work because the farmer understands a law that never changes. What you repeat becomes what you harvest. If you only work when you can see immediate payoff, you will quit on anything meaningful. The best outcomes in life demand delayed reward. Your self-belief must be strong enough to act before the evidence shows up. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, is this working yet? Start asking, am I becoming consistent enough that it can't not work? That question moves you from impatience into inevitability. It puts you back in control. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They chase intensity, then burn out, then start over, then repeat. This loop destroys self-belief because it teaches your mind that your effort is temporary. You're going to replace intensity with durability. You're going to build a rhythm you can sustain. Durability comes from two things: clear priorities and clean boundaries. Clear priorities mean you know what matters most and you protect it with action, not intention. Clean boundaries mean you stop bleeding energy into things that don't serve your standards. Every time you say yes to what doesn't matter, you are saying no to the person you want to become. Not out loud, but in reality. Let's get practical. You need 3 non-negotiables that define your identity in motion. Not 10. Not a complicated system that collapses the moment life gets busy. 3. These are the actions that, if done consistently, make you feel like you're living on purpose. One might be your health standard, not perfection, a standard. Movement, nutrition, sleep, discipline. Another might be your craft or career standard. Focused work, learning, skill building, shipping output. The third might be your character standard. Integrity, patience, communication, self-control, how you treat people when you're stressed. These 3 categories cover most of life. They build a person you can respect. Now, here's the part that separates serious people from hopeful people. You must decide what you are willing to sacrifice to protect those non-negotiables. Because time and energy are limited. If you try to keep everything, you lose the important things first. A man once trained for a long-distance race while working full-time and raising a family. He didn't have extra hours. He didn't have perfect conditions, but he had a decision. He stopped pretending he could train when he found time. He created time. He went to bed earlier. He reduced evening distractions. He prepared his gear the night before. He stopped saying yes to optional commitments that drained him. He didn't do this because he was extreme. He did it because he respected the promise he made to himself. Over months, the training changed him, not just physically. His mind became quieter. His mood became steadier. His self-talk became more dependable. He didn't just finish the race. He became the kind of person who finishes. That's the real victory, not the event, the identity. If you want identity-based self-belief, you must align your calendar with your values. Your calendar is your true belief system. You can say you value growth, but if your time goes to distraction, your life will reflect distraction. You can say you value health, but if sleep and movement are optional, your body will reflect that. Your calendar doesn't care what you want. It records what you choose. So choose intentionally. Set a daily appointment with your future, even if it's short, even if it's not glamorous. Show up anyway. When you do, you are casting votes for your identity. Every action is a vote. You don't become someone overnight. You become someone by majority vote. This also means you stop living like you need to be rescued. Rescue fantasies are seductive. The perfect opportunity, the perfect plan, the perfect partner, the perfect mentor. Those things can help, but they are not the foundation. The foundation is your ability to lead yourself. When you lead yourself, opportunities become usable instead of wasted. Self-leadership has a simple structure. Decide, then do. Review, then adjust. Repeat, that's it. Decide what matters. Do the work. Review what happened without drama. Adjust the plan. Repeat. Over time, your self-belief grows because your life becomes predictable in the best way. You know you will respond with integrity. You know you will correct and continue. You know you will not abandon yourself when the novelty wears off. But there's a trap here you must avoid. As you get disciplined, you might become rigid. You might mistake harshness for strength. Real discipline is not self-punishment. Real discipline is self-respect. It's the ability to demand more from yourself without hating yourself. It's the ability to be firm and kind at the same time. Firm in action, kind in recovery, honest in review. This balance matters because the long game requires sustainability. If you build your life on constant self-criticism, you will eventually rebel against your own standards. If you build your life on comfort, you will never rise. The middle path is powerful. High standards, clean resets, steady execution. Now let's talk about identity at the highest level. The strongest self-belief comes when you connect your habits to a reason bigger than your mood. When you know why you're doing this, you stop quitting on hard days. Not because hard days disappear, but because hard days stop controlling the story. Your reason doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be simple and sharp. I want to be healthy enough to show up for my family. I want to be skilled enough to earn freedom. I want to be calm enough to lead without chaos. I want to be consistent enough to respect myself. A clear reason turns discipline into direction, and direction creates peace. Because the greatest anxiety often comes from living in contradiction, saying you want one life while building another. When your actions match your values, your mind quiets down. You don't need constant reassurance. You have alignment. So here's a challenge you can carry into tomorrow. Choose one identity statement that is earned, not hoped for. Something like, I am someone who finishes the day with integrity, or I am someone who protects my focus, or I am someone who trains even when it's inconvenient. Then define what that means in behavior, one action that proves it, and do that action daily until it stops being a task and starts being you. Over time, you'll notice something powerful. Temptations feel weaker. Procrastination feels less convincing. Excuses feel less believable. Not because you became a different human, but because you became a human who keeps promises. You became a human whose identity is supported by receipts. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Now, consider what 3 non-negotiables would define the person you want to be. and what you are willing to sacrifice to protect them without resentment. Consider what your calendar currently proves you value, and what one change would bring it closer to your standards. And when the next week feels slow, when results aren't loud, when nobody is clapping, what identity will you choose to vote for anyway, so that months from now your self-belief isn't something you hope for, but something you've built into who you are? Chapter 6. The Power of Self-Belief. You've built self-belief the right way, by stacking proof through small promises kept, by holding your standard under pressure, by recovering fast when you slip, by stepping into discomfort on purpose, and by turning discipline into identity through non-negotiables you protect. You are no longer waiting to feel ready, and you are no longer letting one imperfect moment rewrite your entire story. Now this final chapter is where you lock it in, not as a temporary phase but as a way you live. The world rewards the person who can lead themselves when nobody is supervising them. It rewards the person who can stay calm while others spiral, who can keep moving while others negotiate, who can keep building while others search for reassurance. That person is not born. That person is trained. And the training isn't complicated, it's committed. Here's what changes when self-belief becomes permanent. You stop needing constant emotional permission to act. You stop treating discomfort like danger. You stop waiting for the perfect day. You become the kind of person who can create a good day inside a hard day. And once you can do that, your life stops being a lottery and starts being a craft. Think about a compass. A compass doesn't care about storms. It doesn't panic because the sky is dark. It doesn't argue with the terrain. It simply points true north again and again. Your standards are your compass. Your non-negotiables are your north. Your recovery procedure is how you stay on course when you drift. Your courage ladder is how you move into new territory. And your calendar is the map that proves where you are actually headed. Most people don't lack potential. They lack direction that survives emotion. They have goals but no compass, plans but no anchor, motivation but no procedure. That's why they start strong and fade. They're not bad people. They're untrained. And the longer they repeat the pattern, the more they doubt themselves. You are breaking that pattern by replacing hope with structure. Now I want to give you a simple framework you can carry for the rest of your life. It is a way to think and act that keeps your self-belief strong through any season. First, choose your standard. Not a wish, a standard. A minimum you can perform even on your worst day. This is the action that keeps your identity alive when life is heavy. Second, protect your focus. A daily window where you do what matters most before the world tries to rent your attention. Third, practice recovery. When you slip, you reset quickly, you investigate without drama, you adjust, and you continue. Fourth, climb courage. Once a week, you do one thing that stretches you, not because you're fearless, but because you refuse to be ruled by fear. Fifth, live by identity. You cast votes every day for the person you're becoming, and you stop expecting a single moment to transform you. This framework works because it is not dependent on luck. It doesn't require a perfect environment. It doesn't require constant motivation. It requires commitment to process. And process is something you control. Let me tell you what your future will demand from you. It will demand patience when results are quiet. It will demand steadiness when other people's opinions wobble. It will demand resilience when life interrupts your plan. It will demand courage when the next level asks you to be seen. And it will demand humility because growth doesn't care how long you've been consistent. Growth will keep asking you to become more. If you rely on mood, you will fail those demands. If you rely on standards, you will meet them. There is a reason the simple practices matter. The small promise you keep today is not about that action alone. It is about building the kind of self-trust that makes you dangerous to mediocrity. When you can trust yourself, you stop fearing the future. You stop fearing commitment. You stop fearing hard work, because you know you will show up. That knowledge is power. And there is also a reason courage matters. Private discipline makes you strong. Public courage makes you free. There are people who work hard but never step forward. They stay hidden not because they lack skill, but because they lack the self-belief to risk being judged. You are not here to live small. You are here to live honestly. That means you build in private and deliver in public. You train, then you enter the arena. You prepare, then you act. Now let's make it real with a story you can feel. There was a craftsman who made furniture in a small workshop. He had talent, but talent wasn't the thing that changed his life. For years he made pieces in silence, always improving, always learning, but he kept telling himself he wasn't ready to sell at a higher level. He waited for a feeling of certainty that never arrived. One day he looked around the workshop and realized something. His hands were ready even if his emotions weren't. The proof was everywhere. The clean joints, the smooth edges, the consistency, the hours. He had been living like a professional while thinking like an amateur, so he made a decision. He raised his standard of what he would accept from himself, and he raised his courage in what he would offer to the world. He chose one piece, the best he'd ever made, and he put it in front of people who could say no. He didn't get universal praise. He got feedback. He got a rejection. He got a maybe, and he kept going. Each time he returned after discomfort, he reinforced the deepest kind of self-belief. I can handle what happens next. That's your path too. Your self-belief is not the belief that you'll always win. It's the belief that you'll always respond with discipline, that you'll adjust, and that you'll keep moving. Here is what you must understand as you leave this audiobook and return to your life. Your old self will try to negotiate. It will try to pull you back into comfort and excuse. It will say you deserve a break, or you've done enough, or you can start later. Sometimes rest is wise, but avoidance always sounds reasonable. The difference is the result it produces. Rest returns you stronger. Avoidance returns you smaller, so you will decide ahead of time what you do when that voice speaks. You will use your trigger phrase. You will use your two-step start. You will do the minimum standard if that's all you can do, and you will protect your identity anyway. You will never miss twice. You will return quickly. You will treat setbacks like feedback. You will climb your courage ladder weekly. You will measure yourself by your standards, not by an audience. You will keep your 3 non-negotiables, not perfectly but faithfully. And here is the final truth that ties everything together. Self-belief is not a thought you hold. It is a life you demonstrate. It is the way you live when nobody is clapping, the way you respond when something goes wrong, the way you act when you don't feel like it, and the way you keep showing up until your identity changes. If you want a final image to carry, imagine forging steel. Heat, pressure, repetition. The metal doesn't become strong because it is told it is strong. It becomes strong because it is formed under conditions that demand strength. Your life is that forge. Every disciplined decision is heat. Every hard day is pressure. Every return after a slip is repetition. Over time, you become the kind of person who doesn't bend under the same forces that used to break you. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Now take this into action because the next chapter is not in a book. It is in your calendar. It is in your morning. It is in the moment when you're tired and nobody would know if you quit. It is in the moment when you are afraid and you choose to step forward anyway. It is in the moment when you slip and you refuse to spiral. It is in the moment when you could drift and you choose your compass. What is the one daily standard you will protect no matter what? The minimum action that keeps your identity alive even on your worst day. What is the one focus window you will defend so your future stops getting leftovers? When you make a mistake, what is the exact reset you will execute within the first hour so you return to your standard instead of returning to your old story? What is the one weekly courage step you will schedule so you stop circling the arena and start entering it? And when you look back a month from now, what do you want the receipts to say about you? Not the intentions, not the plans, but the proof that you became someone you can trust.